Oh, it's a person. It's basically a teacher kind of person for GitHub education people. Instructional designer on GitHub.
Okay, so we're streaming to Richmond, and we've got a decision point. I told you this afternoon you're going to go off and you're going to create your own database, and you are indeed going to do that. There are one or two other little features that I wanted to tell you about. We're not going to go over every function known to SQL Server, but I did want to promise to teach you a little bit about other database platforms. You've gone through the trouble of installing MySQL and postgreSQL, and the whole point of that, by the way, show of hands, who has successfully restored MySQL and postgreSQL per the instructions? Raise your hand. Like 3 people. Let's go through this, and that probably means my instructions were wrong, but let's make sure. So let me go see if I've got it restored, and if so, I'm going to delete it and I'm going to do it again. So MySQL workbench. I don't even have it installed myself. Yeah, I was wondering where my little dolphin went, and I guess I don't have it installed on this. Let's do PostgreSQL instead to begin with. So PostgreSQL is the elephant. So if you have PostgreSQL, or pgadmin is what they call it, pgadmin, and I've got pgadmin 4, we can go and click on that. And Mudit is whispering, pgadmin 4 doesn't work. It's like, well, we're about to find out. pgadmin 3, pgadmin 4 came out maybe 3 or 4 months ago, I think. Up to then, it came out with version 10 of Postgres. And before then, it was pgadmin 3.
My browser just sits on the loading screen every time I open it.
Okay, it sounds like it's a personal problem we did. So. Because this looks perfectly all right to me.
No, this one.
So unfortunately, it looks like pgadmin doesn't like to respect the zoom. So that's going to be really, really small and hard to see. Let me see if I can zoom it. I don't see how to zoom it. Okay, so connecting server. So the server is not running. Okay, so how do you debug this? We learned on the first day some Windows utilities. So it's saying could not connect to server. By server, it means software. It means server software, because normally you'd have this piece of database administration software, database management system software running on a server somewhere. So you've got a little piece of software that knows how to do exactly what SQL Server services do. And I just gave you the answer. Services, a Windows service should always be running. So let's go take a look and see if there's something called Postgres. And there it is. And look, status is not running. It's blank, which means nope, not running. So let's see if we can start it.
So my page just opened up like
that. Okay.
Did you put connect server? Is that what it was?
Yeah, okay, how did I get here?
Yes.
So let me start that again. So I clicked on start, then I said pgadmin, and you should have a pgadmin for an elephant. Think elephant is Postgres. That's their icon. So you click on that, and the pgadmin, what we're opening here is the analog in Postgres for SQL Server Management Studio. So this is the user interface to their database platform.
Why is ours open in a browser though? Yours don't.
Yeah, mine does.
Yours opens the browser?
Yeah.
It could be a dot version. They're always releasing. That's one of the annoying things about open source is, oh, there's a brand new fresh piece of code I finished last night at midnight. Let me share it with the world. And they publish it. So I might have downloaded mine like a week before you downloaded yours. And some developer out there in open source land said, oh, I think this is better. I'm going to give that to everybody. So if you got the latest, you probably got a slightly different version.
Harper says it should work the same even in Chrome.
Yeah.
Well, mine doesn't even load.
It should work the same way. So to answer Anna's question, how do you get to your thing? It's under servers. So this is exactly like SQL Server Management Studio. You've got the concept of a server, which is that's a host for your database instances. And I clicked on the little plus sign. PostgreSQL will have a little red mark, which means you haven't initiated a connection to that endpoint yet. So you can either double click or you can expand it. Now, mine was not started by default, and I don't know if I did that on purpose, where I said, I don't want you to start automatically, Postgres. Who else is able to get to this point? Okay. The password should be empower 1%, all lowercase. That was in the instructions, I believe, in the installation for PostgreSQL. Now, we haven't ever tested this. I asked you to do it, but we never went back to verify that it was okay. So if you have problems, don't worry about it. We're going to come over in the next, we'll have a quick break after we make sure this stuff's up and running in the next 15 minutes. We're going to make sure everyone's on the same page, and then we're going to go back into it, and it's like, okay, how is this different from SQL Server Management Studio and SQL Server? So, question.
Did I have to use a password because this used to be your machine? It just came up like this.
So Brian's asking, why didn't he have to enter a password? When you install Postgres as the database server software, you install an instance of Postgres on your machine, there is a default user and password. And that's just the way they like to do things. It's just Postgres, and I think the password is Postgres, all lowercase. So either it defaulted with a default password, or if that used to be my machine, I probably created that connection one time, and I typed it in and said, remember it. So everybody able to connect to your server here? Okay, and then expand databases. And by default, you have a Postgres database. That's like in SQL Server, that's your master database. That's like its administration internal metadata. We don't ever care about it. It's just there. It's part of it. So you have a database, and let's go create a database. Right-click on databases, create database. Okay? The user interface is completely different, but it does exactly the same thing. So database, let's say PG1. I'm going to type in PG1. Owner, you know in SQL Server, the default owner, who knows what the default owner of all your objects is? It's called DBO. DBO. We didn't ever cover it, but sometimes you saw me write DBO.tablename. That means the owner of that table. It's the default. You don't have to enter it because SQL Server will assume DBO if you don't enter it. So in Postgres, the default owner, you can specify it here. Postgres is fine. Really, all we're doing is we're creating a shell, exactly like SQL Server. We're saying we want to create an empty database. So I created a PG1 database. It's a little bit more verbose. You've got one more level down before you actually see your tables. So it was a little disconcerting the first time I opened PostgreSQL up, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. It's like, where are all my tables? It is a relational database, right? They put it under schemas. Under schemas, and by default, public. And now you have tables. Now there's nothing in there because we haven't created any tables. So it's really hard to see, and I don't know if I can actually make this bigger or not. Let me try something. That's going to be painful, but let's see if that works. That's a little bit better. Okay, so what we've got here is we've got a PG1 database. We've got no tables. In SQL Server, how would you create tables?
Create table.
Right click, new data.
What do you know? Same thing. Create, so let's call customer will be our first table. Columns, you know, I kind of see what they're doing here. There's a little plus sign. It's like, okay, this is going to be like ID and data type. Here's a nice drop-down list. They have more data types, okay? PostgreSQL is not constrained by database standards. They can do whatever they want. It's open source. So you have all of the data types that you're comfortable with, hopefully, in SQL Server. But PostgreSQL is, in my opinion, the most developer-friendly database out there right now when it comes to relational.
So ID didn't pop up under. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have pop up with
Don't you write that?
So some people are not seeing what I'm seeing. I right-clicked on that, and there's a little context menu. Y'all with us now?
Yes.
Okay.
No, you have to click that plus button in the right-hand corner. And then you can create a new column.
Let me do that again. Right-click, create table, customer, and I click on columns, and there's a teeny tiny button over here, a little plus sign. And then we're going to name it. So ID, and you know, do you think there's an int? Of course there's an int. It's probably called integer. You don't specify a length for integer. It's automatic. What is this precision for? When would you ever enter that? You've learned about data types in SQL Server. Precision means, yeah, if you have a floating point number, you got to specify, you know, how many digits do I want on the right-hand side. So here's null, not null. Is it a primary key? Yeah, it's a primary key. And, okay, how do I add another one? Let's do that. Now, just like in JavaScript, I taught you that they like their variable names in camel case, like first name, small f, and then capital N, no underscores. And if you go into another language, you don't want to let people find you out that you're from another language. You want to speak the way they like to be heard. In PostgreSQL, don't do this. PostgreSQL developers will take you out back and they'll teach you a lesson. This is the way they like to see it.
No.
Nobody likes that, huh? Okay, so that's the way PostgreSQL likes. That's the standard. You don't have to do it like that, but just I'm warning you. If you have a little database that you built in SQL Server style, and you're over there talking with PostgreSQL developers, you're not going to be invited to lunch.
No camel case either.
No camel case, no. Camel case is JavaScript. They're going to frown on that too. So is it going to work? Of course it's going to work, because the database doesn't care. It's the people who use the database that care. So just, you know, fit in. Try to fit in.
When in Rome.
When in Rome. So first thing that might be a little concerning, where's my var chart? Do they not have variable length strings? Of course they do. They call it something different, character varying. Okay? Just to be different.
Can't have a big bang.
Yep.
You don't need the square brackets next to it?
Since we're, question about square brackets. Square brackets do not exist in their dialect of SQL the way they do in Transact SQL. So remember, we're in a different database platform, same concepts, but they're going to say things slightly different. Their square brackets are double quotes. Okay? So it's, air double quotes. Double quote to delimit start and end of a field name that might have a special keyword or a space in it. So where we'd ever use a square bracket in Transact SQL, use double quotes in PostgreSQL.
So why do they have the square bracket?
Well, we're in the designer now, so the equivalent of the designer. We haven't actually written any DDL script. We'll see that in a minute.
She was asking about the data type. There was a character varying with like
Oh.
bracket under it.
In JavaScript, what does that mean?
Array.
An array. You can have a data type, a field type that is an array. And I'm pointing over to Kathy because we worked on a database called Database. And one of its claims to fame was you could have an array in one field. It was called an MU or a PE, multiple value or a periodic, I think. And you could store a whole array in one field value. Is that a good idea or bad idea? It's not for me to say. You can do it. PostgreSQL is very developer friendly. If you want to put an array in one column value, in one row, knock yourself out. It's there for you. SQL Server, it doesn't even exist. So this is using JavaScript style syntax and Ruby style syntax, and as a matter of fact, C# style syntax to mean an array. That's all it is. We're going to ignore that for now. So I'm going to make sure that my primary key is not null. I'm going to make sure my first name is not null, and I'm going to say last name, character varying, 25, not null. And I'm going to save it. Actually, there's some other things over here. Let's see what it's doing. Oh, what do you know? There's the DDL script. You see the double quote there? That's where you'd normally see a square bracket in Transact SQL. That's all it is. Let's save it. And all save is going to do here is going to run that DDL script. And I'm going to have a new customer table underneath here. Expand columns, and what do you know? I've got a table. Okay.
How did you look at that? Look at the code on that?
So the question was, how do I see the DDL code? It's on the far right tab. There's a little SQL tab, and it's actually, this is the SQL that I'm about to generate for you. Now, in some ways, pgadmin is a little bit slicker than SQL Server Management Studio. I created a table, and it automatically updated itself. What a trick. Okay, so let's do... Sorry. Tools, query tool. I'm sorry, I've used pgadmin 3, which I think I even still have installed here. So pgadmin 4, I guess they're taking notes after Microsoft. Every time they have a new version, move all the menu items around so you confuse people. But it actually does exactly the same thing. So what we're looking at here, how did I get here? I went to Tools, Query Tool. So this is your, sorry. It's not that slick. The menu item won't go away. So how do I write SQL? You know a select statement. You're not lost here. Select first name, last name from customer. And, my bad, execute, execute, the little lightning bolt, I'm sure. There we go. Oh, they made this way too pretty. Successfully run. There's also F5. F5 does the same thing. So it gets nothing back. Is that right or wrong? That's right. We don't have any records in there. How do we add records? Well, we could do it with DML, with an insert statement. Let's see. There is view edit data. All rows. Now let's try this. Y'all ever use Access? Mm-hmm. So that's all I'm doing here. Let's see. And now, notice the nulls. What's going on there? Well, I didn't specify the equivalence of identity. So that's going to fail. Let's see what an error message looks like in PostgreSQL. Error, null value. Violates non-null constraint. And it says, that's what you tried to add. Didn't work for you. So if we want to do that, we can say, OK. Let's put a 1 and a 2 in there. And let's try that again. Duplicate key value. 1 already exists. So let's go back up here. Yeah, I missed pgadmin 3. This is not working out so well. So query tool, let's open another window. Let's see what we actually have in customer. I don't actually have any records in customer, so it's lying to us. Edit data. It could be that, reload. There are tabs up here, these little things, they're tabs. So I can click between them. So what we've got here is, let's see, it does want to add that. You know, this is the wrong way anyway. Why is that the wrong way? What's the right way to add data? We know the right statement. Let's talk SQL.
Someone's asking how do you add new columns to the table?
Add new columns?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you would. I'm going to...
He said, wait, I mean data into the columns.
Okay. Add data. So that's what we're doing here. We're doing an insert statement. So I'm going to say, I didn't specify this is an auto number or identity type of field for ID. So I actually have to specify this is actually what I want in that column, which is kind of strange. But
They said okay.
okay. So highlight that. It says insert into column ID does not exist. You know why? Look, in SQL Server, it turned blue when something was a keyword. It turns purple here. So double quote it, and that means that's like our square bracket. And it says ID does not exist, relation does not exist. So I've done something horribly wrong here. Let's do refresh. Tell me the truth, pgadmin. Don't fail me now. Okay.
I was able to edit, to input data into the columns this way.
Good. So hopefully this is a personal problem.
Harper says uppercase.
Very, very good. So, case-sensitive database. Isn't that nasty?
Ooh.
That's not a nice find, is it?
Well, there you go. It seems
I hate this. I can't do anything. Nothing is running.
my pgadmin phone only works on Internet Explorer, nothing else.
Okay. So
So we're already messing it up.
So we got some records in there. Okay. Now, we made this really painful. What's the easy way to talk between database platforms? What are you learning? You can learn their little tools and the little pop-up windows and the bugs in them, because I'm convinced that little typing the stuff in and saving should have saved. That's a bug. And I think it's because an open source developer 3 or 4 months ago released this without proper testing. Think of that. Open source developers not testing their own code before releasing it to the world. Let's do this the way that's going to work no matter what. So let's drop this table. As a matter of fact, I'm not going to use the user interface or their buggy tools anymore. Drop table customer. And I'm going to run it. Do you understand SQL? Yes, you know SQL. So let's start from scratch. Do I have any tables here? So, clean database. My attempt at showing the pgadmin user interface, which I never actually use, how do I do it instead? I use pgadmin, and I use postgreSQL all the time. But why am I fumbling through this? Because I never use the user interface. I get to this query window, and I know some DDL scripts, and I know how to write an insert statement, or an update, or a select. I don't need to use their little buggy user interface. Okay? So how do we create a table?
Create table.
Create a table. What do we want to call it? Let's call it customer. And this time, as Harper pointed out, I'm not going to make the bad mistake of having an uppercase ID. Int. They don't have what's called an identity. Well,
Make it big.
Oh,
sorry. Interrupt your flow.
Make yourself smaller.
I can't. I'm really as small as
Yeah.
possible.
the request was to make it bigger, and unfortunately, I don't think I can.
Sorry.
Actually, let me try that. I think I can increase my resolution to the highest possible setting. The lowest possible setting, let's say. Let's make this 800 by 600. Let's see how big that is. I've got like 3 things on my taskbar now. Okay, that's better.
Hey, Allie, I'm having a problem. I think some other people might be too. I don't know, I'm getting an error that's saying that customer doesn't exist. One obviously exists.
I have the same thing.
It says people are getting an error saying customer doesn't exist. What command are you trying to execute when it tells you that?
Anything.
Yeah.
Select star. Anything.
Yeah, nothing worked.
Is it like?
Oh, you have to make sure that you commit your DDL, your save. Right-click on tables over here and refresh and see if there's anything under there. If there's not, the customer table hasn't actually been created.
No, it's there.
Yeah, mine was there too.
Okay.
Harper says it's now small in the corner.
So you're saying save it?
I'm sorry, I messed it all up.
Does my screen look smaller now?
Yeah.
It's so big now. It's so good. This is whole.
Can't make everybody happy. Let's try this again.
Well, you have to, I think you have to change the other display.
Wait, you can zoom. Just move your cursor. Just pinch out.
I'll try it. Richmond, is that any better?
Yeah.
Pinch out.
How else
Pinch
do you
out.
say it?
Pinch out.
I don't know, it works, right?
Okay.
Oh god, mine just became super.
So
Because ID in.
I want to make sure that you all understand that just because we switch database platforms doesn't mean the world stops, and it feels like the world's stopping right now. So let's move forward. Not null. Actually, you don't call it an int.
Does that identify it as primary key?
That means identity 1-1. And I have to still say primary key, you're right.
And it took identity when I put it in.
As of version 10, which is brand new, fresh database version, this one, it understands identity. But don't depend on that. I think they just added it to be like other platforms. So don't depend on that. The way they like to say it up to version 10, which is like before 3 months ago, was serial.
And it also takes varchar.
It'll understand varchar? Yeah. The way they like to say it is character varying. Let's try varchar. I wouldn't be surprised if, like you say, it takes varchar. Okay. What they're really doing is they're translating it to their own data type, which is, character varying. So let's try that.
Do you need a go?
There's no go. There's a semicolon. So the go is transact SQL syntax. That means run the batch. Run whatever SQL is up to the go and execute it and make sure that schema is done. And then after the go, immediately after, you can start referring to that schema, that table or whatever you created.
Faster than you. Mine was 118.
Okay, so
I'm using Internet Explorer. What do you think?
let's do select all from customer, and we're going to have no results, which is exactly the right answer. Now, if we want to add a customer, help me add a customer.
Insert.
Customer. And then first name.
Okay. EIL?
That's me.
Okay. Okay. We have a record. Yay! So, notice because we had a serial, that works the same as identity. Let's create an order table. How do we do that? Same thing, order is a keyword. So, you know, I really want to use the word order. I just glutton for punishment. For ID and placed at.
How does it keep going?
I believe it's just date over here.
How do you comment
Are you getting
out?
that too?
Or how do you create comments?
Comments is hyphen hyphen.
Maybe a comma there? Relation customer already exists.
What is relation customer already exists?
You're asking me about an error message that I don't even know what you're trying to do. So what did you try to do?
Apparently the table customers already exist. Ah, that's what.
So when you created the customer table, when you ran that, that's because I deleted my customer table entirely. So if you're saying you're trying to run a create statement for a customer, I walked you through how to create it using the user interface, and it probably took. If you want to run it, the DDL script, which is an alternative way, right-click on your table over on the left, choose delete, and then run the script, and it should be fine. So I'm showing you two different ways. Over here, if I refresh, I've got one table.
Doesn't even point to it.
So I've got an order. Let me try to run this. It says foreign key. It doesn't know what foreign key is. So we're going to have to do that differently.
Where is it made for both? Doesn't know what it is.
Yeah. It says, they don't have a date time written like that. I think they just call it date.
Is it constraint?
Let's go see.
Constraint.
So I'm creating a foreign key constraint. This is the user interface, and a quick way to figure this out, let's see, how do they want to talk about it? We go through the user interface, and one of the nice things about postgreSQL is it'll generate the DDL script, even if we don't use the user interface. So local column, this is your whatever table you're on, and I'm on order here, customer ID, references, customer, references the ID column. Okay? Add that. SQL. Okay, so that's a mouthful. But that is the DDL to generate the foreign key constraint.
Which table did you say you were in?
What's that?
Which table did you say you were in?
I'm in order over here. So what I'm doing here is I'm going back and I'm adding a foreign key constraint between order and customer.
Oh, you mean, okay. We're supposed to have some key there.
So it didn't really change anything. All I did is I made sure that I'm never going to be able to violate referential integrity. What is referential integrity? That's another mouthful.
It's when the
A couple of people are trying because they know conceptually, but you got to explain it to grandma.
It's the relationship between the primary and foreign key. Like, you don't want that relationship to get flipped around to where it's not referencing the right way.
You know what it is, but you got to explain it to grandma. Say it simply. Somebody else.
If you have a relationship to the parent, you have to have foreign key history.
It makes it so you can
Almost, but y'all are way technical now. Remember, I'm grandma. It's like, what do you mean? What is a primary key? What are you talking about?
It makes it so you can't have duplicate data.
Say it again.
Duplicate data.
Duplicate data. No, it doesn't have to do with
That
duplicate data.
child
Can't go to the parent's house.
There's the child and the parent is the primary key.
If you have a relationship to a parent, you have to have a foreign key to that parent.
It's its son and father. How does that happen?
You're right, but you're saying it wrong.
Is the opposite.
There are many different ways to say this well. Michael, I think you had an attempt. You want to try it?
I did, but I had no way to explain it to my mom.
You can't explain it to grandma. Jamila.
The son can't be the father.
Okay, so I'm trying to break it down.
Yeah, that's a whole data. There's a whole
You have to, your data, like,
Slack.
the primary key has to point to the foreign key. You have to be able to trust that it's pointing in the right direction.
Once again, y'all know it, but you're having a hard time explaining it.
Get it.
Go ahead.
The title of the function that you want would be the parent.
No?
The title of the key would be.
Conceptually, referential integrity just means if I've got a row and there is a reference to a parent table, there can never exist a child without a parent. So, like if I had an order, that order must always have a customer. I can never have an empty. So, if I see this customer ID, I can't have an order that doesn't belong to anybody.
You just told grandma that the parents are, cannot die.
That's good news for grandma, right?
Yeah.
Kelly's saying, well, you just interpreted to grandma that parents can never die. No, that's not what I'm saying, grandma. I'm saying if a parent dies, all of that parent's children has to die at the same time. That's even worse, grandma. In other words, I'm going to help you hang on as long as possible. So, a child's row may never exist without a referenced primary key in a parent table. Technically, it's very hard to explain in lay people terms. But now, you don't have to. You're developers. We speak your language. Okay? So in an interview, other developers interviewing you, you're trying to explain what referential integrity is. That means that your foreign key references are valid. Anything in a child table that has a numeric reference or a reference of any sort to the primary key in another table, it's guaranteed to be correct, which means that if I've got an order record that has a customer ID of 999, there is going to be a primary key in the customer table of 999. That's guaranteed. That is referential integrity. And this is a foreign key constraint guarantees referential integrity. And before we started talking about databases, that phrase would have been like, whoa, what are you talking about? Now you understand what I'm saying. So, all I did here, I went back because of the syntax that I'm not very comfortable with DDL in postgreSQL. I went back and I got the user interface to help me out with how do you say foreign key constraint? And I got it to do that for me. How did I do that? Let's create order line, and let's do that same thing. So order line, by the way, they like to name their table names with underscores as well. So it's like this. Order underscore line, ID, serial, and we're going to have an order ID, and we're going to have, let's say, quantity, and this is going to be an integer, and we're going to have a unit price. And this is going to be, I believe they say numeric, and it's going to be 12.2. And let's see if that's going to be good or bad for us. And it's good for us. So now we right-click over here, refresh. We have an order line table. We don't have a foreign key constraint. And I'm going to walk you through how did I get it to create that foreign key constraint so I can guarantee referential integrity between the order line child table and the order parent table. Here's how you can do that. It's not a completely useless UI. Expand your order line, expand constraints, right-click constraints, create foreign key. Okay? And inside of here, it doesn't go through and tell you, well, you should probably name it something unique. You just got to type something in. So I'm saying FK underscore order line underscore order. So child table, parent table. You can name it whatever you want, as long as it's unique. Definition, you can leave that as the defaults. Now, we're inside of the order line table, and we're referencing which other table? Orders. So local means order line table. Which field in the order line table is the child foreign key reference? The order ID field. And it says which table, we're going to say order, and which column? ID. Now don't forget to click this little plus sign. Okay? So it says that field matches that field in this reference. If you want to see the SQL, just click on the SQL tab. And if we copied and paste this and run it over here, it's going to do exactly the same thing as if I click the Save button.
That's a lot of SQL to just make a foreign key.
That's a lot of SQL to make a foreign key is right. That's a mouthful. I wouldn't want to type that.
Well, that's because you're altering the table. If you just add it when you're making it, it's only like one line.
Yep. Kelly has a good point. If I actually had the syntax in the creating the table, which I probably had like one word out of place, it's probably constraint. I probably lost the word constraint, and they want to have the word constraint in the definition. We'll have to look it up and figure out what that is. So this is just another way of adding it after the fact. I could have done it as part of my DDL here if I knew the right syntax. So now we have 3 tables, and we have the same tables that we did before. Refresh. You know, I don't want to go through and write all that insert statement again. Watch this. I'm going to go steal for myself all of our data. You know, that's all of my data. That's going to give me customers, orders, order lines. Now, it's not going to be exactly correct because I named my columns slightly differently. But I'm going to do tools, query tool, and I'm going to say paste. You'll find that the tools, like the user interface, is a little bit more cumbersome than SQL Server. It's because Microsoft has a whole lot more money than an open source organization. But, you know, let's try this. First underscore name. And what have we done here? I made this a serial. So I auto-generate the IDs, I believe. Let's take a look. And I didn't even make that a properties. Columns. Integer. Yeah, it's a primary key. So if you wanted to change the structure, I could click the little edit button. I could change it. That's not really why I was here. That's what's called a sequence. Whenever you create, like identity, what's the magic in SQL Server that automatically gives you the next number? In Oracle and in postgreSQL, they like the concept of what's called a sequence. A sequence is a database object we haven't yet talked about. A sequence does nothing more in life but give you the next number in the sequence. That's all it does. For some reason in Oracle and in postgreSQL, the way they like to think about things is, oh, that should be an object in and to itself. And you can attach that object to a table. So theoretically, you could use that same sequence on more than one table. In reality, in practice, you hardly ever do that. But you could. You could have the same number given in multiple other locations, which might be useful if you're a developer and you want to get the next number for something without having to create a table. You could just create a sequence object, and it'll give you the next number whenever you ask for one. So that's what this crazy syntax is here. That says, I want, what's the default value for this record, for this field? I want you to automatically ask for the next sequence value of this customer underscore ID underscore sequence that it generated for us when we said, create me a serial. So, unfortunately, let's see if it'll let me do that. No, doesn't like that. So, it's not going to like that at all. So, what's another way to do this? We have one record on our table. I'm sorry, Kirsty, I'm going to have to delete you. That's not going to work very well either. But you know, it's not a. Why is that not going to work? Why can't I just delete the customer table and recreate it? It'll drop the rows happily. But what else have I got that has entangled me?
The keys.
I've got a foreign key reference to it. So if I try to drop that customer table, I say, wait, you've got an order table that references you. Drop table customer. We're going to try anyway. This is what I'm trying to get across. You can't break things that you can't repair. As a matter of fact, sometimes the error messages will teach you a whole bunch of stuff. You can't drop the table because other objects depend on it. Okay, that's English. I understand that. So what am I going to do instead? You know, let's drop the other tables first. And you're thinking, wait a minute, we just went through all that work and you're going to undo it all? That's not a big deal because I've got the DDL script. So I'm going to drop it, and then I'm going to recreate it the way I want to. So I have to drop it in order. I have to drop, first I'm going to drop the order line, because that's where the foreign key constraint lives, pointing to order. Then I'm going to drop the order, because that's where the foreign key constraint that points to customer. And then I can drop the customer table. We'll see if it's automatically going to drop the foreign key constraints along with the tables. I don't think postgreSQL automatically does that, so this will probably get another error. I was wrong. It did so. So let's right-click, refresh, and we have no tables anymore. Thanks a lot, Allie. Feels like we're going in circles, right? Not so much.
This one over here.
Ints. And I believe, let's take a look at this. I think I specify an order number 2. And then I let order line to be serial. And so, Kelly, you figure out that syntax for creating a constraint programmatically in DDL for PostgreSQL?
Yeah.
Okay.
I told it. Hang on. I put it in.
Oh, you put it in Slack?
Yeah.
Cool. I can just copy it then. Did you put it in code? Questions?
Questions.
Uh-oh. The application server could not be contacted. You all right, Emma? Okay. So where is... Oh, you just gave me a link. That's not very helpful.
Well, hang on. It's in this format.
Oh, there we go. It's even easier. You don't have to say foreign key. You just say references. So it's confused by me being verbose. References what? Customer ID. Okay, so I'm going to select these 3 create table statements, and it says it worked. But let me save you the trouble and heartache of having to do that yourself.
Why does it work to call some of the primary keys using integers and then some as serials?
I'm saying something different. So the question was, why is it sometimes an int and sometimes a serial?
Is it because that if you do an integer, it won't do the identity 1-1, so it will automatically increment?
An integer just means give me a number. It's an integer. So I've got to specify a number if you say int. So let's see what that looks like. So if I'm going to say insert into customer, actually the reason we did this because we wanted to run this code. I wanted to specify the ID of 1, 2, 3, 4. That's why I did it. But notice in order line, I don't specify the ID value. I'm going to let it auto-generate. So in 2 tables, I'm specifying the primary key. I happen to know it's 1, it's 2, it's 3. The others, I'm saying, take care of it for me. So in SQL Server parlance, it means one of these, the order line table, has like an identity column. The other 2, it's just normal int.
Gotcha. Okay.
I got a question. I was going to ask you about that.
Question, Stevenson, go ahead.
You answered it, but I don't know what you're doing now.
Yeah, that's not going to work in postgreSQL because it's actually, let's verify that it is case sensitive. If it is case sensitive, these 2 should work. Actually, that ID column. You know, I'm not sure we need to put that in double quotes. I'm going to try it without. What's the worst that could happen? We get an error message. Error messages are developers' friends. Let's try that. You know, it didn't need that ID. It was complaining for nothing. So I'm not going to put that double quote. Uh-oh. It didn't like customer ID, though, because that doesn't even exist. I have an underscore in there. Place stat. Good. So we got 8 rows. Now, I've got order line here. Order underscore ID, quantity, unit underscore price. So if I'm going to run this, is this going to work or not? I'm going to wager that it's not going to work because I have capital O. And I'm testing to verify that postgreSQL by default is going to be case sensitive. It's not case sensitive. I don't know what I was complaining about earlier. It doesn't care. I think it was a UI bug. So what have we got here? We got a bunch of tables and we got data. Let's prove that we've got data. Right click, view edit data, first 100 rows. We have data. So why did we do all that? Let me paste this so y'all don't have to go through and do that yourselves. Just a waste of time. Now, we wrote some queries against this morning, right? I wonder if these will work in a different database platform. I'm going to copy and paste it. And let's have a new window. So, what do you think is going to fail here? Why is that going to fail? Why do you think?
We have an underscore now.
Yeah, all our field names are different. So step 1, let me actually call the field names properly. You know, I'm lazy, so let me do this. Come on, editor. Tell me you have a find and replace. Oh, this is a horrible editor. There's no find and replace. This is completely useless. Okay. There's a copy paste at least. First name. Okay, so now that I've done that, just to be accurate, QTY unit underscore price extended. Now there's no extended price. We don't have extended price. How do we calculate extended price? what is extended price? There are two columns. Get them right here. Quantity times unit price. So I'm going to copy that. How do you say times? Star. Okay. So I've got customer. It's not case sensitive. So orders, order underscore line. And we didn't call it orders. We call it order. We intentionally brought the pain. There we go. And we don't have customer ID. We have customer underscore ID. Same with order ID. And that doesn't matter, but just to be pretty. Okay. So now what's going to fail? Well, we got one more. Place stat, yeah.
Extended price.
Extended price. Ah, we don't have an alias there. Just going to be that. So that looks like it might work, but there's one other thing. Concatenation like that works in Transact SQL. We need concat. The aliases work exactly the same.
So full name will.
It will, because we're naming it whatever we want. This is like, I want to name my column that. It says, syntax error, full name, concat. What have I done wrong here? C dot. Huh. Syntax error, full name. It didn't like the as keyword. I guess they dropped that as an optional. Yeah, it doesn't want to say as. So, full name. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there. That is interesting. So why would it not complain about extended price, but it does complain about full name? That seems a little buggy to me. And now it's okay with an as.
What did you say?
Yeah, you don't like that. Doing the same thing consecutively and when it fails, when it doesn't? Okay, that's not good. Fortunately, it's not the database engine that's doing that. It's this buggy user interface. Don't judge postgreSQL based on this user interface. Why does it not matter? We're application developers. So what are you really building a database for? Where are you going to be using this database from? Your application. So you're going to write code that's going to send SQL and you're going to get data back. The only time you ever use this is as a developer when you're writing some queries and testing things out. You don't often, your users are never going to see this, so it doesn't matter if it's buggy. It's normally not this buggy. I would have gone with PGAdmin 3, which is solid and it's been around for years. PGAdmin 4, not so much it looks like. Anyway, so it still has an elephant. So if you download PGAdmin 3, you can connect, and you can connect to a version 10, which is what this is, database from PGAdmin 3. It's going to throw like 3 error messages saying, wait a minute, I can't do that, I can't do that. Say, okay, 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 and it'll do it. Because it's not really that much different. So what did we do? We wrote SQL in a different database platform. We copied and pasted it, and we changed the field names because we renamed the fields to fit in with other PostgreSQL developers, and it runs. The DDL is a little bit different, but the SQL runs. Now, we couldn't concatenate with plus signs. We had to say concat. The functions are all going to be different. It's almost like a point of pride for a database platform to not reuse the same function name that you have in another platform. They're all going to do it a little bit different. I don't know why they do that, just to screw with the developers and keep people in their little cliques, I guess. Point here is that your SQL does run. Do group bys work? I don't know, let's find out. Of course they work. So let's see what might be different. First name, last name. I rename my columns. That's why I'm having to do that. That should work just fine. There's no such column as extended price because we don't have the computed persisted thing. So we have to actually do the calculation on the fly. We can do that, no problem. Just do it inside of there. Count star, no problem. Oh, we got another extended price. You see why I made that a computed persisted column? Because I didn't want to have to retype the calculation 10 times. And there's no stdev. They call it stddev, I believe. It's these little things that you wonder why they even made it different. Customer ID doesn't exist. It's customer underscore ID. You see how kind of tedious this is? It's all the same stuff. If you understand the SQL, it doesn't matter which platform you write the SQL on. Is there a reason that Oracle likes to charge $50,000 per seat per year for their software? It's probably overpriced. It's the name. It's corporations are willing to pay it, so why not? Order underscore line, not order line. And first name, last name. So what I'm doing here is I'm changing my column names because I'm trying to fit in with postgreSQL developers. But everything else, the SQL does work. Let me run this. I'm not sure about that stddev, so I don't want to get an error because of one little guess. Let's do that. I know sum count max all work. Concats works fine. There we go. Let's see what the standard deviation. I don't even know if they have a standard deviation function, to tell you the truth. I've very rarely ever had to use standard deviation as an aggregate function. It does, yeah. Oh, why is that all weird? It's because this is the explanation of why that grouping doesn't make any sense if you group by order line as well. So to make any sense, we want to group by orders. We'd select that. Okay. So yeah, it works. So, case in point. Is it different? Yeah. Is it so different that you can't speak that language? No. Should you put in your resume? Yes. Because if you know how to write SQL select statements and you know the joins, left join, inner join, it's identical. Where clause, identical. Conditional operators, identical. What is different? The little functions, like, oh, I can't concatenate with plus sign. I've got to say concat. I can't say identity. I've got to say serial. Or you can say identity now. They just added that in version 10. So questions about PostgreSQL. Now I want you to, for any of those of you who have not finished your Sakila 10 challenge questions, and I added one more in the code last night or the day before, restore your Sakila database and continue writing your queries in PostgreSQL. Okay? That said, I really wanted to give you all time to go and do your own database, and we are going to do that. I'm going to close down PostgreSQL. Let's go to the next platform. Harper's saying, there's another tool if you're on Mac that actually works better than pgadmin. That's one of the nice things about open source software. There's no one definitive right tool sometimes. Other people said, you know, that's crap, I'm going to write my own, you can do it. So, I don't have MySQL. You want to plug in and show them?
Sure.
Actually, how you feeling today, Emma? You feel like presenting? No? I know, I picked on her because she came to class on like the first day of database, like, okay, I'm not going to use SQL Server, but I need to do it on a Mac. So we got her set up with MySQL. So she's been doing all of the examples in TransactSQL using MySQL syntax. So if she can do it, and she, as far as I know, she wasn't savvy to database technologies too much before she got in the course. And she's followed along with SQL selects, and it works the same way, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's just a little bit of syntax difference, but a lot of the stuff that works in MySQL, like concat, for example, also works in.
Yeah, so let me repeat that for Richmond. She said, yeah, the syntax is like concat, if it works in MySQL, SQL Server is going to usually be a superset. It's going to be more friendly to people coming from other languages because they want to pull them onto the SQL Server platform. So they make those things work on SQL Server. PostgreSQL, MySQL, take it or leave it. We don't need you developers for Microsoft, you know? That's kind of the mentality. So request for OBS. Oh, what is going on there? It's probably because I changed my resolution. Sorry guys, y'all been peeking at a small window.
Maybe that's why it got shifted.
Yeah, it was probably...
Also, you can zoom into postgreSQL. It's a pinch of the mouse.
So apparently, let me see if I did my homework or not. I don't... MySQL. Let's see if it's on here. No. MySQL is not installed. So, I'll tell you what. Why don't you all go and let's do the build your own database thing now. And I will go install MySQL, and I'll come back in like an hour, hour and a half, and I'll do it on my computer. Or Kelly's going to step up and she'll do it. And the point is, it's going to be like a 10-minute show. Because what we did in PostgreSQL, we're just going to do the same thing in MySQL. The whole point of this discussion is SQL works everywhere. It's a relational database. It speaks SQL. The things that don't work the same are concats, the little things on the fringes that don't matter. So, what's the assignment? I want you to go off, and I want you to think about, remember that last week of the class where you're going to build your entire full stack application. Database, middle tier, and front end. Think about building that database now. You know how to do it. You know the concepts, one to many to many. Start thinking about what that database looks like. Go off, build your own database. If you have questions about what data types or how things should relate, ask somebody. We'll get back together in about an hour, but you're really for the rest of the day, I'm going to give you a little survey of MySQL and show you that it works just the same. I want you to go build your database, add some data with insert statements, practice, ask questions. We'll come back and we'll take a look at MySQL. Challenge yourself. That's the theme of the day. Don't do the easy stuff. Don't do select first name from customer. Start thinking about how do you join these? How do I group it? Make sure you understand it, because I don't want you to leave here today without understanding and having the confidence of, I can write a several table join. I understand what grouping does. Because 3 months from now when you're working on a job somewhere, if it's not with me, you need to be able to do this. And sometimes when you Google it, it's not easy to get the right answer from Google if you're doing SQL set logic sometimes. It's hard to find the right example. And if you're going to go watch a YouTube video, there you go for half an hour, 45 minutes, instead of doing your work. So try to get it today. We're here to answer your questions. Go to it. I'll let you know in about an hour when we get on and look at MySQL.
You want us to do this in SQL or in...
Oh, the question is, do you want to do it in MySQL or SQL Server or PostgreSQL? The answer to that question depends on which middleware platform you're probably going to want to use. If you're going to want to use C#, SQL Server. That's what it likes to use. Can you use others? Sure. If you're going to use Elixir, you're probably going to use PostgreSQL. If you're going to use Node.js, you'd probably use Mongo, but you can also use any of the above. It can speak all of the above. If you're going to do Ruby, they like to use MySQL. So it's up to you. Now, if you choose wrong, it's like, oh, am I wasting my time building a database in SQL Server that I might eventually choose MySQL on? Answer me that.
Not really.
No.
Just do what we just did.
You script your database, change some field names, and you're good. You've not lost anything. Go to it.